So as you go through the day, you start to kind of get closer towards lunch, dinner, whatever, and you kind of get that pang of hunger. You kind of understand that, you want to kind of start eat something, and then that hunger is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Eventually, you want to take care of that, and you start planning it. And that hunger is kind of like the concept of working out and the desire and motivation, right? So the first thing we want to do is recognize the hunger that we have to get in shape and lose some body weight, all that business. We want to kind of start looking at it as something that we do want to have very soon. That's why when I started the video series, I kind of started with prep of ideas and just concept of saying, hey, let's get into this. Let's start like minimizing our body size and all that, and kind of showing you how exciting it is. And then, you're probably already a bit hungry, so to speak, for a better body and a lighter physique. You see people on Instagram and everything like that. So we want to look at that, and the way to trigger this hunger into something and starting going after and getting the meal, that point is usually actually a very difficult thing for most people trying to get into shape. The whole thing that I started doing that was like the game changer of I want this to I'm doing something towards it is to kind of get bored, basically. So boredom is something that I really, really talk about towards being the ultimate motivator, the most important thing that people run away from all the time. It's the factor and the emotion that is the drive for motivation. Now, for me, I used to go to the dentist's office and they had these crappy highlights magazines. And by the time you get to reading the highlights magazine and then you're done with it, you would kill for the opportunity to go for a run because you're so bored, you're so numb, but because you've exhausted all entertaining thoughts. So you put down that highlights magazine and you're just staring at the ceiling and you're like, wow, I would totally go for a run right now. Wow, I would totally, fix all the problems that you want to do and you've been meaning to do. It's always at that moment, and it's a complete boredom. And you have all the motivation and all the clarity that never comes at any other given point except for during this boredom. So I say encourage the boredom for stage one. The first thing you want to do is get bored because that takes that hunger into action. So the first thing that I did was delete the social media off of my phone. You can do everything from a computer now. Instagram updated their messaging, and you can do stories, everything you can do from the computer, except for TikTok, but who cares? That's just a bunch of candy. Let's kind of put TikTok away in the drawer, and we'll get back to that in another episode. But the first thing to do is encourage boredom and sit there, stare at a ceiling. Take note of everything you do when you procrastinate. Take note of everything that you do when you have more important things to do, and don't do that exact thing. And just sit there, and you're going to start feeling it. It's going to be really uncomfortable. But the uncomfort of boredom is far less uncomfortable than not reaching the goals that you want and not having the motivation and trying to find videos and watching like Gary Vee and stuff like that. Like, you don't need all that. You have it all in you, and it's stronger inherent motivation, and it literally just comes down to boredom. And that's all you have to do is just get so bored that running sounds like fun. And it's funny because once you start doing these things, if you've done them before, you almost always say, I don't know why I stopped. This is the greatest thing in the world. And then if you've never done things, you're like, wow, this is really amazing. This is really fun. I'm enjoying it. This is super interesting if it's very difficult. All of that stuff. There's so much to go into. But the main takeaway, again, I have to reiterate, encourage boredom. It's absolutely necessary. After that, I want to talk about what happens when you hit that wall, that dip, and how to get through that. So after you get going, everything's amazing, and then something happens. You kind of hit a wall, you hit a dip, and there's this great book by Seth Godin called The Dip, and I highly recommend reading that. It has a lot of great tips, but my personal method is to take it and to look at it like, at first you were really hungry. We got this hunger, and then we went to the store and we got a bunch of stuff, and now we're home and we're chopping it up. That was like step one. You're all excited about what you're going to eat, what you're gonna get. Like, you're gonna get these gains, you're gonna get this attention, you're gonna feel a lot better, you're gonna just have a better fit in your clothes, all the outcome that you want from losing your body fat. That's like the stage one. That's the motivation part. That's that highlights magazine thing that I was mentioning. And then you get to this stage, which is when you hit that wall, and it's kind of like, oh man, I don't really want to do this. Why is this so much more difficult? Now every little thing becomes very challenging, and your desire and motivation it's just going to the wayside. It's not turning out how you imagine it. You couldn't imagine this pain and how difficult things have become. And that's the wrong way to think about it. Now let's look at it as it's actually easier now. You've already gone through the hard part, which is ramping up to get to this point. And now this point is actually you're cruising. Like, you got onto the highway and now you're cruising. But because you're not putting the pedal to the metal to get onto the highway, you feel like it's not working. You have to do more. It's actually, you have to do less. All you have to do is keep going. So imagine you were chopping up all that food, and then now you're cooking it. So when it's Wednesday and you have to do legs and you don't really feel like it, just look at it as like, oh, you just keep going. You just kind of go and put it in. You're putting it in the pot and you're just kind of chilling. You're like, oh yeah, this is fine. You just have some saute stuff. You're doing your squats. You kind of can go through the motions, and it's totally okay. Versus at first, you need to go intense. You need to change your life. You need to start making evolutions of your habits or discarding certain problems. Now you can chill. You're already doing this. You're already part of it. It's already going. Continuing instead of changing. That's how I look at it. So again, it's a lot easier of a stage than the beginning. The beginning takes far more effort. Again, it's like, getting on that highway, it's a lot more fuel. Once you're on, you just cruise. You're sauteing, you're chilling. First, you were chopping up the stuff, you're doing this, you're picking out stuff. That's way more complicated. You've already set this plan, you've already got it going. You just go through the motions like you're just cruising. It's way easier to do this, and I don't know, I've been there, I get it. It does become challenging, and you make up excuses of why you can't really get it done or why you push things off, but that's because the way you look at it. Now everything is the way you look at it if you really, really think about it. I can look at the color blue and I hate the color blue. I just dislike it. But somebody else, and most men, actually love it. It's their favorite color. But for me, I think it's an atrocious color, kind of like a pea green, which most people think is a horrible tone. I find far more pleasing than a baby blue. So anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's all about perspective. So you have to shift your perspective and look at this as you're just cruising now. This is the easy part. It's going to get hard again, I think, or more effort and energy will be needed in the future. But for now, you're just cruising. So just keep going through the motions, and it's actually going to get easier even still a month later, and then another month, because until you change the routine and change the course, you're just cooking, man, and keep it cooking. It's weird though how after we spend so much time and so much energy trying to change and become something, we get so wrapped up in it and we lose track of ourselves, why we started doing it, what we're doing. Like maybe this isn't the thing that we want to put our attention to. There's all the doubts, I suppose we could put them, and those come up, and then that kind of ruins everything. And it kind of happens throughout. It actually increases over time, at least for me it does. And I think that has to come down. Let's put it back into this dining analogy. Is we made it, we cooked it, and we've served it, and we should be appreciating it, and we should have been appreciating the smell of the aromas while it was cooking, and appreciating the fresh like ingredients while we were collecting, getting like say the program and looking at what we want and everything like that, and while we were hungry, recognizing that things are cooking well, they're not being burnt, and then we can look at it and we can eat it. And the actual enjoyment part, getting not necessarily the rewards, although that's part of it, and you start getting some recognition, you start getting feedback that things are working. But for some reason, we're so wrapped up in how much energy and how much time we've put into it, we've lost track of the idea of slowing down and actually enjoying the meal, what we've created. And you don't have to have created the best. We're in the process of creating many, many good meals to eat and enjoy. And I think what happens is mentally, we just start wanting to speed it up. We start rushing through our food. And what's gonna happen is, and when we do that, it's like when you were a kid, you eat really, really fast and you go out and play and you try to, go crazy, you get a stomach ache. And what I wanna talk about is slowing down, and slowing down mentally, physically, everything. Start chilling out. When you start to need a day just to rest, then rest. Rest, but rest smart. And do stretches on the day that you're taking off or you're pushing the day along. You need to really just slow down and appreciate where you're at and what you're doing. Really enjoy this thing. There's so much work you put into it. Why are you throwing it away and trying to get to the next thing and just putting energy and thinking about the next workout? Like, that comes later. Like, we're just cruising. We're chilling. We just want to enjoy it. That's how I look at it. So again, slow down. It's so enjoyable if you just take your time. So usually when you're dining with friends and after you eat your meal, you're chilling, you're relaxing, maybe you have wine or maybe some coffee, whatever it is, you're relaxing, you're really enjoying everybody and everything about the whole situation. And that's kind of what I think that I've focused on is basically I found a tribe, so to speak, and I'm not necessarily directly, I'm actually kind of a little bit of a loner, so I really kind of keep a standpoint. So my tribe is actually, they don't even know about me. They're YouTubers and other people online that I admire their fitness, and I'm now interested in things that they say and things they're doing, where before I really couldn't care. I could care less. And that's kind of what I focus on now. And it's weird because this is what happens when you get into a new hobby of some sort. You want to really, really fuel this fire. And it's funny because, things, like I said, I could care less. Well, that's because you're just not aware. You kind of always end up living with these blinders. And, things that maybe became a pain point before of like fitness, like, oh, I got to work out, all this stuff. If you really jump in and you find it as a hobby and something that you can get into, you find it far more interesting, and you find the people, that you maybe just like didn't even see as real. They just kind of materialized into something that was really, really fresh and amazing. People that you just didn't notice, and you're like, wow, I can't believe how amazing you are. And they're so far along, and you look at them and you're like, wow, I wish I just started way back, or all this like new found appreciation for these people and everything they're doing. And it's so strange because once you start really getting into something, it's these other people and these other worlds that you're visiting that really, really keep the ball going, and it keeps you going. Now, I mean, there's a phrase, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And for me, my friends, so to speak, are the YouTube channels that I follow and the people I follow on Instagram or pay attention to. And I communicate maybe a little bit more with people who are more into fitness before. And that's kind of this weird magic trick. You end up like getting to this other world that you can see all the stuff that you didn't see before. It's a weird perspective shift. And I really recommend just going in all the way and finding that tribe. And it's weird because a lot of times you will find the experts of these tribes to be very knowledgeable and kind of like standoffish, and it's because they've been in it so long, they don't care, they don't have that excitement. So I want to say that too, because don't let that discourage you. They may not be as interested in telling you about these things that they've told 100 times over, because they kind of don't care. It's just part of their life. It's kind of like, for instance, I get a lot of questions about beards. Like, I've had a beard for so long, so maybe 10 to 15 years, and any kind of time I hear about beards or questions, I'm like, yeah, I mean, and I kind of regurgitate the same thing over and over again, or I point them to sources where I've already said this information. It's not as interesting to me to talk about something like a beard, because it doesn't have that excitement. It's just kind of a way that I am, and that's a great thing, and this is a result that I do appreciate, and that's something that is very valuable. But with that, I feel like there's a next level, and that's the part that I appreciate talking about, is what happens after you get that thing. And those are the kind of things you want to talk about when you're entering into a tribe. Try to stay away from the superficial questions like, oh, how much are you lifting? How did you do this? Focusing on the what's and the how-tos, and ask and look into more of the why. There's so much more knowledge and individual knowledge between the people if you talk about the why. And this is something that goes across all social gatherings of any sort, with women or business. Stop just this superficial conversation. Like, it's going to feel a lot to the expert like asking how the weather is. Not like there's anything wrong with asking or talking about the weather, because it is something that we all share, and it is something that changes. But if that's your only thing that you can understand how to talk about because you don't know how to go further, that's a problem. And when you do socialize with people, you want to ask them about themselves and actually listen. Stop talking over them and telling them about your story. This is not a time for your story. When you're socializing, you really, really want to focus on the other people, because that's what's happening. You're with other people. You don't want a mirror. You don't want to just bounce your ideas off of it. If you want to do that, you set up a camera and you talk to YouTube like I'm doing. If you want a one-sided conversation and get feedback on your ideas and your thoughts, then yeah, you should do what I do, which is talk to a camera. But if you really want to have a conversation and some friends and stuff like that, you want to get into their world and see what it's all about. So when you get to this stage, after you started working out and you're getting some like glory and everything like that, and things are starting to happen, what's worked for me in the past, and I'm kind of getting to this point again, which is focusing on the people and really appreciating them and listening, and stop waiting for your turn to talk or asking them how to do something. Just be like, you're awesome, and just show a lot of love to them. And what's going to happen is it's going to really feel far more fulfilling, and that's going to fuel your journey, and it's going to make you get excited about yourself as well. And you know, it does feel really good to be interested in. So the more success that you have, the more you are like these people, these now friends. And even if they don't like you, you can still call them mentors in your own world, and you can become like them in a sense by just like being like them, by doing things like how do I say it, being more like their matured self. And the way you do that is to look at them, appreciate them, and then use that information and that love for them and bring it back to your own world. So when you look at doing handstand push-ups, you're like, oh, this is gonna be really fun, that's awesome. I saw how it worked out for a blank person, and that's really cool, and I really admire, I like that, because you are in this state where you're really excited about these really fresh ideas. And you know, they just have huge shoulders and they're cranking out handstand push-ups. They've been doing it for years. They don't see that excitement, but they did at one point, and that's where you're at, and you want to get that. And in fact, you can do it maybe even better because you've learned and you've seen their insights, so you're standing on the shoulder of giants, and you may even possibly be more likely to surpass these people you admire. And this is a huge thing. This is probably one of the most important things once you get over the idea of the how-tos of getting in shape. This why and insight to the world that you're existing in is just so rich with information to fuel how you keep going every day, day to day, and doing those extra weird set, and you finish, and even though your course doesn't say anything about sit-ups, you might just want to do them because it's awesome. You picture that person with crazy awesome abs, and you're like, yeah, oh, I'm going to definitely do that. So this is a very, very awesome step to do. I highly encourage finding a tribe or people to follow and learn from and look at, and it's just extremely, extremely important. I feel one of the most important parts is that after the meal, resting, appreciating, and listening and inquiring about the other people that you're surrounded with. It's actually very, very powerful. So let's stick to this dining analogy because I really, really like it, and I like the association with food and fitness, although I do realize that it's very confusing so far, saying hunger and then talking about food, but then maybe I was talking about diet. I get that. It's kind of a mess. I could have picked a better analogy. However, this one's working, and let's just stick to it. And sticking with something is very important, especially in fitness. So anyways, I recognize that fitness is definitely a little bit of a thing that maybe not everybody's super interested in. I just kind of want to take a little break to talk about how, I understand that I may be talking about body minimalism, but there's a far deeper message here that I'm kind of talking about. And I'm talking about having a course and stages and underlining thinking and process to everything. And I'm using minimalism and body, fitness, all that, as a vehicle to deliver a message. And I understand that I have to kind of spell that out. It's really, really important. I think that a lot of people just aren't seeing that. And I get that. And I apologize. I could have delivered it a little bit better. So anything that I was saying, understand that it's actually a different kind of message. I'm not really talking exactly about fitness or minimalism. It's a train of thought, it's an idea. And if you can wake up and see this idea, then you can apply it to whatever you're interested in. I'm personally interested in minimalism and minimizing my body and the fat on it. That's kind of what I'm applying these thinking to. And this is something that it actually can be applied to many things, all of these lessons. So in this whole lesson, this group, this staging that I've been talking about, the next one I like to kind of put up is like, it's in a cleanup phase, okay? So after you've ate and you've dined and you've hung out, then you pick up and you're doing the dishes and you're bussing the table. So what this is kind of the reflection stage. This is like the learning stage. Like, oh, how was that? Oh, I had a little bit too much salt. Oh, I burnt this. I could have done the timing so that they both came out at the same time. You're reflecting and you're living the situation, seeing how you could do it better and what you would change next time, because we can always evolve, we can always get better. And it's not a hateful thing. And when somebody says, oh no, it was crap, instead of taking that personally, which you can totally disagree and just not even worry about it. If you were really happy with it, that's one thing. But if like one person says it's crap and everybody else on the table loved your meal, then, you kind of go, okay, well, then maybe I don't care about your opinion. But if that keeps happening, maybe you want to address it. So again, but this is going to be how you look at the whole situation. So you're wrapping it up and you're just looking at how everything went. How can you get better? What's going to be better next time? And this is a stage that I think is what a lot of people kind of gloss over and is very difficult, because you have to be a little bit more logical to make logical and scientific progress. This is kind of something that I think a lot of people struggle with. I do sometimes, because I have an ego. The ego comes into play here, which is a very interesting part of this, is like realizing, oh, maybe that wasn't good enough. I'm going to get back to good enough in a second, but it wasn't living up to your expectations or what you thought it would be or could be, and you realize how crappy it was maybe, or all these things. You're looking at it and it kind of can slow you down. You're like, oh, well, it's not worth it. That was a lot of effort and I didn't get anything back. I have a really hard time actually with real life cooking, not analogy cooking. I have a hard time getting into it because it's very, very difficult to me. And like I mentioned in one of the other episodes, it was ruined for me. And I have to get over this ego part of being like, no, like I have to kind of buck up and be a little bit more scientific about it and get over these problems and issues and let my ego go and realize that there is no good enough in a journey. There's just how it is. And there's something I really, really strongly believe is that we're always good enough. You don't have to do anything or level up or get better or anything. You're just fine, just as is. Great, you were learning. That's good enough. Like, that's good. Like, if you don't expect to be an expert on the first time you say cook a meal, and like logically, this analogy is horrible. But anyways, so that's kind of what we want to do. We want to let our ego go, kind of center ourselves, be a little bit more logical and scientific with our analysis of everything so that we can mark it down and just apply that improvement towards the next round, because there is a circle. It's kind of like that snake eating its tail. It's just going to keep going over and over again. There is no done. There is no complete. It just keeps going and just evolving. So in this analogy, we're going to be finishing up and we look at how everything went. And we think back of how can we improve. And the next thing would be to actually apply these techniques. But with this needs some planning. And this planning is kind of an important stage. Now you can do it very casually, but your progress is a lot slower. If you realize there was problems, say injuries or some sort of issue that you can tackle, we want to actually address that and make it a focus. These things are really great. This is what I did for my graphics career. Every time I found a weak spot, I was like, ooh, I gotta nail this down and do it like 30 times until it's driven into my memory. And then I can forget about it because I've actually memorized it. Weird way that I think about it, but that's kind of how I look at it. And this is what we want to do after everything is like really, really soak it in and let it kind of just sit there and digest, which is a great way to put it. We're digesting all this information in this process that we all went through. Now, there has been something that's happened to me over and over because I'm not in perfect shape. I'm not talking about this particular thing of fitness exactly, but it is a great thing that I've been battling with forever. And you go up and down, you lose interest and all this stuff. And this thinking is something that I've applied to other things, and I'm now applying to this, where it worked totally professionally, so it's got to work with this. And it's working so far, and it's worked in the past in like little things that I was unconsciously doing these steps to. So this is my final insight. The final words is that we want to look at things in stages, and as long as we can compartmentalize our thinking towards it and attack those trains of thoughts, whether they're difficult or pleasant, and understand and put them in places. I put them in places in my brain, like physical, like slots, like, this is where chest is or whatever, like this is where cardio is, whatever. You can kind of attack the problem. So when your hunger for this progress has lowered, you want to address your motivation. Your motivation may be that you're full, you're satiated, you're stimulated by some other source. So for me, it was the social media. Anytime I'm online, watching YouTube, on Instagram, whatever, I'm stimulated, I'm not hungry. And I'm sure you've heard the analogy about how a lion's hunger is when a lion's hungry is when it's hunting, and it's ferocious is at its worst. But when it's fed, it can be killed by an alligator or whatever. And that's the thing, is when we're satiated and we're fed, we have no reason to do anything. We don't need to do the hunt. We don't need to go. And keeping that as a source of information for me is to keep a little bit of hunger almost always. And that can come from my social circles, the interests and aspirations and goals, and just self-development of evolving myself so that it isn't so difficult and trying to just continue working out. All of these things we want to just constantly bounce around. And honestly, I'm not a planner. I'm a very spontaneous person. And I'm not a person who's like super checklist and like all weird about it. Like there's some awesome people I wish I was like that and I could plan out everything. But that's not how I work. I go through and I'm very present, and then I recognize where I'm at, and then I say, oh crap, I'm in this box. Let me tackle this box. And that's why I get super tunnel vision on things, and I'm kind of an airhead, because I'm so focused on this one thing and this issue, I want to fix it. And I kind of do forget about things. And it's important for me, and something I'm working on, is to understand that there is still other compartments and boxes to address, and stop being too locked into one and trying to fix everything about it. We want to spread our attention about everything and really just kind of look into things to the right amount, and balance everything about, and stop trying to be super perfect. That's going to be a killer. So this is the end of this particular video series. I hope that you liked it. I want to know what you thought of this, having it a big video like this. This is my first one of this size. I've never put much effort like this into the actual source and content in one video. I really liked it. It's funny because I am a person who loves short videos, and I like pretty pictures, but instead I'm just kind of going for this really what I feel is a very insightful video, and it's jam-packed with a lot of stuff that I just think it's gonna get missed by a lot of people. But if you can like wake up and hear what I'm saying and kind of get to this reality and live in this world, you can be like, oh crap, these are really great things and questions that you can ask yourself. These are not lessons for you, these are ideas for you, and suggestions on how to create new questions that you want to address for yourself, and how you can tackle these situations and ideas in your world and whatever you're after. Again, I'm doing minimalism in body, but there's bigger concepts here. And although it's not a very well written thing, I'm just really excited to share this a little bit long form, half written thing to you. So I just want to hear what you guys have to say. And also I want to hear what the next thing that maybe we want to talk about here, the next topic, because I would love to do one that you guys are really interested in. This one was for me. Like, honestly, like, you don't like it, whatever. It doesn't hurt me. But if I could make something for you, I would love to hear what that might be. That would be very awesome to see if I can. I think I would have a better time writing that out and creating something of even higher value. Like, this is like a little sloppy, I get that, but again, I've already learned. I'm talking now, I edited some earlier, and I already know, like, oh wow, my energy was a little weird, oh this cut was weird, why do I have B-roll there? So like, there's some really cool things evolving in this format, I think, for me, and it's really exciting, and I like it. Like, I can also focus on still uploading and creating pretty quickly ish, and it's just more fun, also I don't have to set up lights and stuff. So yeah, again, let me know what you guys want to hear or talk about. It's something that you challenge in. Maybe we want to talk about style. Should we talk about like men's style and how I dress, or maybe hair, or maybe design and branding, something about how I get a look. We can talk about Instagram. Yeah, I'm just curious, and I'll try to pick whatever comment I think is the most thorough and insightful feedback of something that's interested in like some really solid questions. I'll probably go with that, but I'm gonna let you guys choose your own adventure for the next one, and maybe that's what we'll do, is create a choose your own adventure series here in the future, maybe a little less often, but I like this format of compartmentalizing the video into I don't even know what this is or what it might be, but I can see it, and I'm really excited about where this might go. So yeah, that's it. Till next time. Peace.